This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah! Another myth bites the dust.
Hello, TBR Nation. This is Amber King from the Perfect RIA. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday, where I'll be covering the highlights and action items from this week's episodes. On Monday's episode, Matt and Micah discussed the importance of doing things that are actually moving the needle and pushing yourself towards your goals and growth instead of just doing things that are playing office and essentially keeping you in the same spot. They said this comes down to having a plan for when you're distracted. What are you going to get back to in order to move the needle? Because so often you can just play office. Everyone does it. Micah added that this can come down to a difference of opinion in fact or feelings in reality. That there are some things you can do that feel good, but they may not be doing anything towards moving the needle. Matt and Micah walk through their recommendations for handling those times that you're playing office, as well as how to determine if you're actually doing activities that are going to help move the needle. Matt keeps a Post-it note on his computer that lists out when he gets distracted, what he can do to get back on the path. He said we all fall into playing office, and when we catch ourselves playing office, a lot of times we'll just double back down on playing office. So he recommends that if you catch yourself playing office, stop, get out of your chair, and go do something, and then figure out what would be the most effective thing you could do from there. Micah compared this to budgeting, where you're just justifying all the money you spent. So his recommendation is when you feel you're doing something that isn't hyper-productive, just stop. Micah has 4 points written out on his phone that are what he considers actually being productive. Those are the top things he's found that help him move the needle. Matt keeps 2 lists, a personal one and a professional one. And then he talked about how some of his best work is done in content creation, but in order to do that, he has to be in a contained space, or he'll catch himself doing so-called research or getting on social media. Micah added that for creating content and advisors who aren't sure what to write about, he always goes back to what are the top questions that you're receiving from clients. Another thing Matt will do is read books. That helps him get recentered. He recommends that you step back, reflect, and think about what are the 3 things you can do to move the needle today. One of the things on Micah's list is technology efficiency. He'll look to see how he can streamline things and see what can be tweaked to increase that effectiveness. Another area that Matt and Micah said you need to focus on is your prospecting repetitions and looking at how many you've done. If you're playing office, you need to stop and put those reps in. Micah also said that if you like playing office, that's fine, but be sure to get your other stuff done first. Matt and Micah also talked about looking at how you start your day and what is the most valuable use of your time. They said you need to look at whether you're setting up your day for success or failure, and that whatever the most difficult thing to do is, you need to do that first. Micah recommended the following as to what are the top most valuable things that you can do: prospecting, client meetings, creation of value adds, and strategic planning. Matt and Micah talked about more of those telltale signs that you're not focused and just playing office, such as jumping between tasks or not giving yourself a time restraint. And that applies to both personal and professional development. You need to make sure that you have time set aside for this. Micah shared an example of how to handle focus when you have a time constraint in a meeting or an appointment coming up. Set a timer or an alarm. It's so simple, but it will free up your mind so you can actually focus on that one thing. What about playing office related to your team, or what if you're a team of 1? The guys recommend that you hire an assistant now because it will allow you to free up your time. You need to be focused on the things that are hyper valuable. Everything else needs to be delegated out. That's how you're going to grow your office. In regards to your interactions with your team members, Matt said sending messages or emails back and forth is playing office, and that if you're being reactive, you're playing office and nothing else is getting done. Michael will message his assistant for them to add things to his agenda. He said it's their responsibility to take that and pull that in, and then it frees your mind from having to think about it. Matt added that any time you're trying to remember things, that's playing office. Anything that's not advancing your productivity is playing office. The last area of playing office that Matt and Micah talked about was any time you spend justifying or victimizing yourself for failure of success. You're not getting anywhere when you do that. And if you just start tearing someone down because they're more successful, then you have a lot of head trash. And instead, you need to look and see how you can improve. Let's get into action items from Monday's episode. You need to have action in your life and a reminder about when you're playing office and how to get yourself back and focus on what you need to do to move the needle. Write down what are the top things that are not playing office and have that front and center. And lastly, sign up today for our Nation Power session next week on March 29th, where Matt and Mike will be talking about the one big mistake advisors make. On this week's What Works Wednesday, Mike was joined by Stephen Jarvis from Retirement Tax Services to talk about what an advisor should or shouldn't be doing related to tax planning. Mike and Stephen started the episode by talking about how there's different levels of tax planning and what the bare minimum is. Stephen said that every financial advisor is doing some kind of tax planning already. Even if you're recommending to your clients how much they contribute to an IRA, those have tax impacts. Basically, doing anything with a person's money, it's going to have a tax impact. The difference is that there's advisors who are doing it consciously and some who aren't. Micah brought up the dishwasher rule because you're already doing tax planning in so many different ways. But is it a conscious decision or not? Are you not getting credit for the work that you're doing? So if you're not consciously doing tax planning and in turn not getting credit for it, what's the other end of that spectrum? Stephen said the other end isn't tax preparation. Instead, it needs to be the highest and best possible thing that you can do for a client, to where you're taking responsibility to make sure it happens, and you have a system set up for it to be successful. It's that commitment to seeing it through in the system to make it happen. But what about education and tax knowledge? Stephen said there isn't a certain level of tax nerdiness that you need to achieve. However, there's got to be a commitment to continually learning and improving, and you should be committed to enhancing your tax knowledge. But for advisors who maybe are a little nervous about trying this out, you just need to start down the road. You can start by setting expectations with clients that you want to be involved. You can start with that knowledge and then bring in the professionals to help with the rest. Micah said it's easy to hide behind a lack of knowledge, but you should at least start down this direction to start improving. You don't have to become a tax expert to deliver massive value to your clients in taxes, but you do need a process for this. Now, one thing he cautioned against was your ego and that it can creep in when you try to take credit for things that you don't fully understand. So when you're partnering with someone, you need to make sure that you share credit. It's all about the client getting the value that they deserve. Another important thing to consider is how and what you're communicating with clients. Mike and Stephen said that communicating timelines to clients and when follow-up will happen is important in delivering value. And you also need to set expectations on who's responsible for the next steps. Communication also applies to COIs. Mike and Stephen said that there will be times that you don't agree. However, no one wants to be thrown under the bus. You want to make sure that you're working together with this person. So what's the goal? And you both need to be on the same page. Mike and Stephen discuss the things that are in your control. For example, if you're going to establish those relationships with a CPA, it's going to take time and you're going to have to drive it. Or have your relationship managers reach out to the CPA in advance of client meetings. Find out if there's anything that they need. That's an easy thing advisors can do to help build that relationship. And Stephen added that you can own improving your tax knowledge. One of the biggest things an advisor can do is get more reps in to review your client's tax returns. And find another advisor who you know is doing this. This can help give you some direction. Let's get into action items from Wednesday's episode. Get out your calendar and time block tax planning. And create a process of success for taxes. This needs to be something that you can control and own. And have someone on your team check to see how many of your clients you actually have tax returns for. On this week's Worlds to Conquer, Jamie might have heard a few feelings as she was talking about work, tenacity, grit, and grind. She kicked off her episode by talking about how people confuse the term lifestyle practice with being lazy. And instead, it means that you're deliberate, disciplined, and hyper-focused. Jamie then shared what she believes is stopping most younger people from achieving a level of greatness and discussed the different ways to move people. She talked about motivation, aspiration, and inspiration. Now, with motivation, Jamie shared that it was a game changer once she learned that you can't motivate other people to do anything. Motivation is a temporary feeling, and the reality is that another person can't motivate you. A person has to be willing to be motivated. And you have to have two people engaged. With aspiration, you can aspire to be like someone, or when you see a level of greatness, you can aspire to that. And then with inspiration, when you've lived a life that is so exemplary. Jamie said with her team, she isn't looking to motivate them, but she does look to inspire them. Again, you'll never motivate someone unless they're willing to be motivated. Going back to having a lifestyle practice, Jamie said there's a misnomer that when you have a lifestyle practice in balance, that you're not willing to put the work in to get there. She said this can get confusing for people who aren't willing to be goal-getters and have discipline, but that it isn't about having a shopkeeper mentality where you're the first one in and the last one out. It's about being hyper-focused on what you're doing. So, how do you show you're committed to growth? And how do you show that grit, tenacity, and drive? First, you have to be a goal-getter. You need to set goals for the year, for the next 3 years, and the next 5 years. Next, you need to create and innovate. Jamie said there's lots of ways that a junior advisor could help add value within the organization. Think of ways that you can take the burden off the leadership team. And then you need to be a team player. You need to bring the team up and around you. Jamie said that success is magnified when leaders get involved with their team members and team members feel passionate towards helping one another. Again, Jamie said lifestyle isn't about laziness. It's about being deliberate and intentional about all of your time. You need to learn that level of focus. And if you're wondering why you're stuck and not moving up in your career, it's because you haven't demonstrated that you want this. She said if your actions contradict your goals, then you're stuck in that frame of mind. Your actions must match the words that you say. Let's get into action items if you want to 10x where you are today. First, you have to be a goal-getter. What are the next 90-day goals, 30 days, or even 7 days? What can you verbalize and take action on achieving in order to be a goal-getter? Create and innovate. Look for ways that your team and your company can grow. Show someone that you're wanting that success. They need to physically see that you want to create and innovate. And you have to be a team player. You need to have your team committed to goals, and you have to show up for your team before being asked. Jamie ended this episode by stating that it's never too late to do this now. But if you don't do this, you'll be stuck in mediocrity. TPR Nation, before I wrap up, I want to remind you about our upcoming power session at the end of this month, next week on March 29th. This is a nation power session where Matt and Michael will be talking about the one big mistake advisors make. Be sure to get signed up today by visiting theperfectra.com, or you can email us at lifestyle@perfectra.com. That wraps up this week's recap. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday. Be sure to give us 5 stars wherever you're enjoying this podcast, and share this or any of our episodes with another advisor or team member who you think might benefit from listening. And until next time, happy planning.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father.